Hey there, welcome to the latest episode of the Sexy Thyroid Solution. I'm your host, Angela Brown. So today I want to talk all about macro versus calorie counting. But if you could do me a really big favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you could go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and then you can hit that little bell so you get a notification when I release a new video each week. And then if you're watching this on my other social channels, go ahead and share this with someone who could benefit from this. So I love talking about the main difference between macro and calorie counting. All the clients that work with me have heard me say this over and over, and I've said it on here numerous times as well. I am not a fan of calorie counting. One of the big reasons why I'm not a huge fan of it is everyone's going to burn calories a little bit differently with certain foods. So for example, if I consume 100 calories worth of, let's say, sweet potatoes versus someone else consuming that same amount of calories of sweet potatoes, you might burn them totally differently. So the calorie burn thing is not necessarily going to be very consistent between different people. And so that's why a lot of people, they do calorie counting and they actually may not even lose weight. Sometimes they actually gain weight. And that's one of the big reasons, is because everyone burns them differently. The other factor to also consider is that when you are counting calories, not all calories are actually equal between different foods. So the calories, like for example, the fat grams, let's say the fat grams in almonds versus the fat grams in cashews, you might burn them completely differently. They're not necessarily equal. So you can't really compare if you're consuming a certain number of ounces of fat in almonds versus a certain number of ounces in cashews. They may burn completely differently. Even though you might be consuming the exact same so-called calories in them, they're not going to burn exactly the same. So they all burn completely differently. It also could depend on a lot of factors. You know, for females, you know, especially cycling females, you're going to burn things very differently in the beginning of your cycle versus the end of your cycle. So there's a lot of factors to consider with that. So that is why, for me, especially with my clients, I'm always recommending, if you're going to count anything, to count macros. And what I mean by macros, as I mean carbohydrates, protein, and fat. The other thing to also think about is when you are doing this so-called counting, whether it's macros or calorie counting, it can become an obsession for some people. So if for particularly the clients that I work with, if I notice like, okay, we're getting really hung up on the numbers here, I'm going to have them back off. I don't want someone to get obsessed and totally hung up on numbers, because that can actually become a stressor for someone and make it worse. So if you are someone with that, then I would definitely not suggest doing a lot of calorie counting, especially like even macros. Tracking it is going to become a stressor. It might become too much for you. However, if you are tracking, I do suggest carbohydrate, protein, and fat, because particularly for people with hypothyroidism, we actually need a good amount of protein and good carbohydrates. When we're talking carbohydrates coming from healthy carbohydrates like starches, sometimes grains for some people if they tolerate them, vegetables, they're very low carb, but they still are in that carbohydrate category, as well as fruits. And then fat content, you know, you don't want to go extremely high fat. That can actually slow down your thyroid a little bit if you're in a hypothyroid state. So if you're going to track anything, it would be that. That is the big difference. Like I mentioned, if it becomes such an obsession, you do not want to do that. You actually just want to make sure you're just eating healthy. Eat from your food groups. I don't like eliminating complete food groups, so that's another reason why I don't particularly like calorie counting, because in that sense, you could just eliminate a complete food group and not have it at all, because you're focusing on, I'm eating my calories today, not I'm actually eating healthy and I'm eating for my body. So focus on eating for your body. And again, macros would be the way to go. If you have questions with that, reach out. I'm more than happy to give you a little bit more information on that if you do have more questions. And I will see you on the next video. Bye.